All right, welcome back, everyone. Well, we went through all kinds of interesting stories here that was happening in Russia, that's happening in Malaysia. So, usually we kind of like to reserve the third topic for something that's a bit not really current affairs, but more things that we are just generally interested in learning about and maybe just sharing with all of you, our listeners, because I think the best way we can understand something, whether it be a concept, whether it be principle or philosophy, is to try see how well you're able to deliver it to an audience. So I think this is a great opportunity here because last time we kind of did the same for the Dune Part 2 movie, and I think it went really well. So we're going to be tackling an issue here, not too far off from what we did in the last topic, because this is going to be particularly Jewish ritual, a particular Jewish ritual, which Hafiz, maybe you could start off with.
Yeah, well, Dune is a fictional story, sci-fi story. This might not be. Some people might say it's semi-fictional. So yeah, I'm not here to judge if there is a conspiracy theories or whatever. But I'm just gonna tell all of you what's the thing that happened in I think the last 2 years. So when we talk about Red Heifer, is stories with multiple layers. So to truly understand it, I'm gonna talk in three phases. So the first one, the background of the issue. Secondly, to explain the ritual, what's gonna take place or what gonna happen, and also how this event will affect the global politics. As we call it, it's a ritual, but it's actually more than that to all of us. So first one, the background to understand all of this. The issue with this is that first, this is not a belief of the mainstream Judaism. So the Torah Judaism Society the other day post announcement that they are actually against on certain ritual that being talked about secretly because the conservative and Zionists, whether the Jewish Zionists and Christian Zionists, they never talk about this openly until very recently. So there was a CBN news coverage on this. You can just look up it on YouTube. If you put Red Heifer, it's probably gonna up on your searches. So to understand this is a minority belief. But why are we talking about it today? It's because this minority actually in power in the Knesset, and most of the Knesset members actually uh, in favor of this so-called project. So if you don't know, there is an institute called the Temple Institute that actually was created to facilitate this so-called ritual. And if you can just look at their website, they're actually asking for donation, and the donation is actually for to develop a perfect breed that was demanded in the scripture, that a red cows, a red heifer, from the nose until the tail, there's no other color on it. There's no white spots or whatnot. There's no imperfection. So perfect red heifer that would be used for the ritual. Now, in 2022, five of this red heifer was purchased in Texas for 100,000 US dollar, and these five cows were brought back to Israel. And this and listen to this: how they actually bring it to Israel is actually to declare as a pet. So this is um, how very unorthodox things that they do. Like they even fool the officers to believe that this is just for pets. Like, who buy cows for pets, right? But maybe red heifer, I don't know. So then after that, it was actually breed to till today, because on April, Adi, to be interestingly, on 8th of April, which is the solar eclipse that gonna happen, they also say these cows gonna come So, conspiracy theories, a lot of things that we definitely cannot confirm. But what we can confirm is the purchase of these 5 cows and also the Temple Institute that wants to do this. Now, what is the ritual? Okay, so first, Red Heifer is needed to do ritual. The ritual is a precursor to build the temple. The Solomon Temple, that was supposed to be on the Temple Mount where the Dome of Rock is. So the red heifer is required, and then after being slaughtered, will be burned, and the ashes will be used mixed with water to purify those who wants to build, the contractors or whoever that involved in the building of the temple, to purify themselves so that they are eligible to work on the building, the construction of the temple. And from this temple on, then they will sort of so-called like welcome the Messiah sort of thing, if you believe in that. To make it clear, the purpose of the ritual is to pave way for the welcoming of the Messiah as well. And we are Muslims. So in Kopitiam, Adi and I are Muslims. So we have some more belief also what Messiah is, but maybe different from what the Zionists believe in, because they believe in the return of a Jewish Messiah. The Christian Zionists also believe that this is supposed to be Jesus coming back, resurrected to this. So this is the belief that they actually do push to try to push and to actually make it happen. And how this is gonna be a global politic event is, just imagine if the Red Heifer was found, slaughtered and all that, to make a way for the third temple to come, a destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque is a must. Now, can you imagine the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque will bring rage to almost 2 billion Muslims in the world? Those, I think a few years ago, when the French caricatures was made to mock Prophet Muhammad, there's so many cities or whatever Muslims association going for this demonstrations. Can you imagine the third holiest site in Islam will be demolished because of this? And part of this also coincide what's happening since October 7, because after 100 days of October 7, the spokesman for Hamas also mentioned Red Heifer in his announcement, that this is blaming Red Heifer ritual is part of this as well. So we understand why Trump says that just finish whatever you're doing so that we can move on from this. So I think what Trump means, this is just me reading into this, is that to expedite all the necessary things that you need to do the ritual, because in terms of instrument to actually do the ritual, it's already completed by the temple of the Temple Institute. The only thing waiting now is the Red Heifer ritual, and to mix the ash with water so that they can purify themselves. So this is the Red Heifer brief story. How do you bounce from this, Adi? Like, is this new things to you?
Well, I mean, when it comes to looking at this whole Jewish ritual, right, which is the Para Aduma, which is the Red Heifer, right? I mean, it's something that was, I would say, 2,000 years in the making for almost every Jewish person that has come before and is still alive. Because, I mean, when we look towards the history of the Jewish people, is that they divide their history in three, what's it called, periods, which is the first temple, the second temple, and third temple period, which is coming now with the creation of this new Solomonic Temple. Like, the first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, and then they captured all the Jews and forced them to work as slaves in Babylon. And then the second temple, which was destroyed by the Romans, which led to a huge uprising, which was the Merkaba revolts. And then exiled even further. So I think I mentioned this before, that returning back to the Temple Mount, where the Solomonic Temple, the holiest site for Judaism, is something that has always been a constant belief for the Jewish people. They always had to believe that they would come back and then usher in the new age, which is the third temple age. Like, if you remember the song on the rivers of Babylon, we sat down and there we wept and we remembered Zion. And that's very true. That's a lamentation that has echoed and reverberated through every single Jewish person, is part of their core beliefs, especially when you take into account the idea of Messianic Judaism, where a savior or Messiah would come down and liberate and bring forward an age of purity and destroy evil, right? So this is a very significant spiritual moment for the Zionists, because it's not just a religious, a powerfully religious event that has been awaited for the past 2,000 years, but it's also a very strong political message to send out, that the Zionist endeavor, the Zionist enterprise, has borne great fruit. That it is something that is very righteous, and it would definitely galvanize to see that what is the best way to validate your beliefs than actually seeing it happen in your lifetime. Many people Jews have been awaiting this, and this was even captured in a lot of very powerful mystical texts as well, like Moses bin Maimon, who was known as Maimonides, did say that in one of his, I think it was one of the Sefers, the Sefer HaMitzvot, or whichever mystical book that he produced in Andalusia, that the core practice of the Red Heifer was that out of the ashes, right, the purity of the ashes would bring forth a cleansing. It's a ritual cleansing. So you could say that this is the cleansing of a dark period of history for the Jewish people. But now, that's all well and good for the Jewish people. Finally, they would have almost a very significant religious event that has they've been waiting for. But at what cost, like you said, because the Solomonic Temple sat on the Temple Mount, which is now the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So it's very, for the birth of the Third Temple Age means the potential destruction of another sacred holy place for one of the biggest religions in the world. This could not just be, I mean, if the destruction of the first and second temple was very shocking to the Jewish people, that they carried it for the next 2,000 years, this could also be a similar event. It could be a gargantuan event that could affect the Muslim consciousness for the next 2,000 years. Unless that is somehow you could share the temple. Of course, you can't do that. But the gravity of the event, what I'm trying to say, is parallel with each other, and it's very ironic because, for a lot of the Jewish people, is that they went through a great catastrophe in the Holocaust, and now they're subjecting the Palestinians to the same treatment. The Zionists are doing the same thing, and now that they're going to inflict the same psychological catastrophe that they have been believing in for the past 2,000 years. That is the equivalent when I see the ramifications of the whole Para Aduma ritual here. And definitely, it's going to galvanize not just support from Zionists, thinking that, okay, this means that this is a sign from God that we really are the chosen people, that we found a way to re-establish our destiny. But at the same time, it's going to be galvanizing a lot of more radical support and sympathy from Muslims all over the world. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, where the Prophet prayed, it's the third holiest site in Islam, defiled in such a manner, right? So it's going to, I don't know, they say that this whole ritual was meant to bring forth, like some say it brings forth the signals the end of the world, right? Could that
Yes.
really, it's it really a similar, is it that not far off the mark, is what I'm trying to say. And maybe I'm being too alarmist here. Maybe it wouldn't be that huge of an impact, but I think the impact, I would beg to differ, the impact will be significant.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily interpret that end of the world as World War III, because once this destruction of Al-Aqsa started, if they ever started, it's gonna be a war. Like the tensions already in some in Europe, now in Middle East as well. Like all you need is another, like a drop of fuel to the fire to spark a new rage against like you said, the third holiest site in Islam. So this is something that we can only read to, not reading deep into it. But like you mentioned also, Adi, I think we need to make it clear that Judaism is a religion, Zionist is a political movement. So yes, like I said, they are minority, but they are the ruling minority now. So they actually have the power to execute whatever they think that they believe in. Another problem to it is also that so many debates talking about like how the ritual going to take place. The Zionists insist on Temple Mount, but other Jewish communities says that it could be anywhere in the Jerusalem area. So that could be, if they were really going for this, that could be the meeting them halfway, so that they could just like leave the Al-Aqsa compound alone, and we can build somewhere else. But I don't think the Zionists would come to give in to just like, hey, okay, I'm gonna agree with you. So let's. I wouldn't slightest believe in that, because there was reported also activities, so-called archaeology activities in Al-Aqsa, but these activities were believed as a face to making the Al-Aqsa structure, all the surrounding the Dome of Rock, become more weaker, so it could be easily for them to destroy and then to rebuild the third temple. So this is something that in actual fact is not a conspiracy theory, but the whole ritual, again, like no one can confirm it because this is some sort of a ritual for them. Like even the word is, it's a ritual. So what we can confirm is that there is a temple institute that just go to their website and you can look what are their visions for. They already prepared the altar that they're gonna put on the olive mountain, and then they're gonna prepare all this some sort of like a ritual stuff in instruments that will help to do the ritual. So more to this is that what I interested in, especially when I see the true lens of a non-Jewish, a Muslim, for example, the political effects from this, because like you said, this is all I care is about political implication. So that what happened here should be make not just the Muslims, but the whole community, the whole world community, so that whatever the Jewish or Zionists, for example, that they try to achieve here should not be in others' way also. Because the destruction of Al-Aqsa, um, in any standard, would be a huge event for not just the Muslims but for the Christians as well, because you remember it's not just a holy site for Jewish and Muslim but the Christians as well. So it involves all these three major religions. That's like what, half of the world's population. That's the secret sauce to World War III.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you look at it from the political part. Like for me, it's the whole esoteric undertones here, because these things are very central to, the whole a lot of Jewish traditions and Jewish faiths here, right? If we look at this whole the whole, like, I did put out a pattern that the temple periods is one of destruction and reconstitution, right? And that's a very it's perfectly captured in like Kabbalistic traditions as well, because in the Kabbalah, right, Kabbalah traditions in Jewish traditions, is very painted around the idea of the Sephirot, which is the tree of life, right? which was the totality of divinity of the world, basically. And in Kabbalah traditions, is that it experienced a shattering of sorts, which they call the Shervat Hakalim, which is where divinity was split, and the tree of life was sundered and broken into different thousands of pieces, which is the world we have today, according to the Kabbalah ideas, right? And the whole point of Jews who practice Kabbalah was to reconstitute the tree of life, essentially, which kind of mirrors what the whole idea of regaining the third temple, reigniting the third temple period, which is something was shattered, something was despoiled, and something needs to be reconstituted and rebirthed. Which is ironic because you would have to call for the destruction of something else without actually bringing out a reconstitution of what's going to happen after that. So, it's a huge parallel. And I'm just trying to put it like really foot down here, is that this is a very core feature, a core faith, part of their faith, of the Jewish faith. Just like there are some things that we as Muslims or even Christians cannot really compromise on when it comes to faith. Like there are certain universal laws that we do have to abide for, which is the same in Jewish traditions as well. So it's trying to find, that's the challenge here when it comes to finding that middle ground in to ensure that these holy sites, right, which is central to every Abrahamic religion, the chance to be able to represent themselves and to be able to share all these things, because at the end of the day, these are still what we call Abrahamic faiths. It still descends from Nabi Ibrahim, the patriarch, essentially, and it still descends from the same idea of God, essentially. So, if that was the case, right, then this has to be the essential discussion. But of course, the Zionists, the Zionists for the past 100 years have been on the ascendance. They have been reaching new heights of power. They've been reaching new heights of success that they've never seen that the Jewish people hasn't seen for the past 2,000 years. Why would the Zionists give that up? That seems to be the major obstacle right now. And going back to the whole World War III scenario, I mean, Pakistan has nuclear weapons, right? So it doesn't take, how much would it take until a trigger happy Pakistani general, with the chaos that is happening right now in Pakistan, to launch a nuclear missile on Israel, seeing that this is the last straw, right? What's stopping that? So, I mean, sorry to paint a bleaker picture here, but there's just so much emotional and spiritual investment in this whole event, which can serve as a catalyst for something very significant.
Yeah, that's why I think this is, if you, like you said, mentioned, like part of our faith. There's no compromise when it comes to our faith. And so if you see a religious Jewish, they would see the Nakba, the destruction of Palestine since the Nakba time, is a process to make way for this. Then you see this is part of the your faith, that the torture, the murder of the Palestinians is part of this, that we are going to, like the destruction of Gaza. Why they're focusing on so much on Gaza? Yes, Hamas is there, but this is maybe a red herring also, that what they're trying to do in Jerusalem, because in up north in Israel, where they're fighting off with the Hezbollah, it's also happening there. So Israel has a lot on its plate, but they actually, if you believe this is part of your faith requirement, it's gonna be very easy to draw people in. That's why the support since US in the how many years, how many decades now, from, I think this is coming from the religious Jewish community. Uh, just like any other religion, we have not so religious Jewish community, which is more liberal, more secular when it comes to the idea of Zionist as a state of Israel. But those who believe, those who all in with this faith, believe in Zionist movement, not just as political movement, but a religious one, would come to this kind of destruction that you mentioned, Adi. So World War III on the horizon. Any
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, this is obviously not the belief of every Jewish person, right? When it comes to reconstituting the Third Temple, right? I mean, there's definitely a lot of leeway when it comes. If you look at the last 2,000 years of Jewish development and the Jewish tradition, right? There's been a lot of evolution that has stemmed from the Jews that have been exiled from Judea, basically. I mean, you have things like the Merkabah literature. You even have like I mentioned the Kabbalah, which aren't as focused on a physical reconstitution of the Solomonic Temple. I mean, I think a lot of Jews in America as well piggybacked on the whole Puritan idea that came when the pilgrims came to America about designating America as a new Jerusalem, right? So there's definitely a lot of evolution, and it depends like how literally are you going to take these kinds of ideas here. Obviously, the Zionists have taken it way too far and thinks that a reclamation of the Temple Mount is in line with their ideology, but it definitely doesn't mirror exactly for the rest of Judaism. I mean, like Kabbalah, when it comes to the rebuilding the Sephirot, it's not exactly a physical rebuilding, but more of a spiritual one, which can be done through good deeds and good works. So it's not too different from how a lot of branches of Islam has developed as well. We had in the Mughal Empire Din Ilahi, which was a whole syncretization between Islam and Hinduism, trying to reconcile two very, very different traditions. So evolution of ideas can flourish as long as it's. I mean, obviously, there's certain universal principles like universal law. You wouldn't ask a physicist to challenge universal physics, right? The idea of physics that we've established. Same goes here, but there's definitely a lot of leeway, I think, when it comes to this kind of issue. But obviously, I'm not a religious scholar, neither am I that well versed. I mean, I do like to look into a bit more the esoteric side of these things, but not essentially an expert. But it's just it's how I would see it.
For those who are interested in Red Heifer story, you can just log on to YouTube and find Faith and Friction podcast. They talk on lengthy about all this topic. I think that's it, Adi, for this topic as well for this week. This is the first week of April. For those who are listening on Spotify, please comment on the Q&A and comment down below how we can improve our podcast, and also on YouTube as well. If you like more on a short format media, please like and subscribe, follow on our TikTok and Instagram as well. Any last word from you, Eddie?
I just want to say that to all my Christian friends, Happy Easter, and to all of my Muslim friends, Muslim myself, Selamat Hari Raya, Salam Eid Mubarak, and I hope you all would have a great holiday ahead of you.
Yeah, so if gonna happen on possibly on 10th off, so we may have push the recording a bit earlier or after 10th of April. So with that, goodbye for now.